Welcome to Hornbill TV's Primetime with Ngullie. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys are doing great. I was in Newland the past 2 days and I think the roads are really starting to look good. The only thing is, if you guys are from the Newland and Naga United area, I think we really need to drive a bit carefully and drive a bit slower too, because I think the roads are good now and every one of us are really taking the chance to fly over the highway. We have a lot of women and children there, people going to bazaar, and because the place is quite congested and the planning is quite close set, so that you have children running in and out, you have autos coming in and out. So I think that place is something that we really need to be careful when driving in there. So anyway, the road is really good there. So we couldn't have the show the previous 2 days because I was in Newland. Anyhow, welcome back to my show and I hope you guys are really doing good. Today we'll be taking a look at the flesh trade or commercial sex work in India. Another topic that we will be talking about would be about what life looked like back in the days when Nagaland had the Armed Forces Special Powers Act enforcement. It was something that was not only seen, but it was also something that was experienced by men and women, young and old, especially during the period before the ceasefire in 1997. And then, yes, we'll be taking a look at a disqualification of Congress leader Rahul Gandhi. What do you think are the options that he has been left it? So we'll be checking out these stories. So let's go right into the stories now. A prostitution racket was busted by the Nagaon police in Assam on Thursday. Reports that we received here today say that 17 people have been arrested, while 5 girls were rescued. The accused persons reportedly included the owner of a dhaba. So they were allegedly running the illegal trade from a dhaba at the Bhargat bypass in Nagaon. So Nagaon's police superintendent Lina Doli told the media that 5 girls were rescued during the raid. The reports say the arrested people included customers, brokers, and employees of the dhaba.
আমাৰ খবৰ আহি আছিল যে বৰঘাটত এই ভুগদৈ ধাবা যৌনৰ ব্যৱসায় চলি আছে বুলি আমি খবৰ পাইছিলো আৰু হেতু খবৰ পোৱাৰ পিছতে এডিশনাল স্পি ক্ৰাইম ৰূপজ্যোতি কলিতা আইসি মৰিকলং জুনমণি ৰাভা আইসি বৰঘাট ৰমণীকান্ত দাস তেওঁলোকৰ এটা টিম আৰু লগতে আমাৰ এসআই প্ৰবেশনাৰ্স তেওঁলোক এই গোটেই টিমটো তাতে ৰেড মাৰাত আমি তাৰ পৰা 17 জন কাস্টমাৰ ধাবাৰ ওনাৰ ব্ৰোকাৰ এমপ্লয়িজ হেই ধাবাখনৰ এমপ্লয়িজ টোটাল আমি 17 জন মানুহ পাইছো তাৰে ধাবাখনৰ ওনাৰ হল ৰাতুল হাজৰিকা আৰু যোনটো মেইন ব্ৰোকাৰ যোনে সোৱালিবোৰ আনি দিয়ে কাস্টমাৰৰ পৰা পইচা লয় যোনে ডিলটো ঠিক কৰে হেতুৰ নাম হল দুলাল আহমেদ তাকো পোৱা গৈছে আৰু বাকি এমপ্লয়িজ আছে আৰু কাস্টমাৰ
Every year, countless women and children in India are deceived, abducted, or sold into the flesh trade across India. There are an estimated 20 million commercial sex workers in India, ladies and gentlemen. Of the about 20 million, 16 million women and girls are estimated to be sex trafficking victims, meaning they were forced into the profession. Of course, there are a lot of them who engaged in the profession out of choice, but there are also who have been pushed into this activity because of circumstances. According to media reports, there are approximately 1.33 lakh native sex workers in Andhra Pradesh, followed by Karnataka with about 1.16 lakh, and then follows Telangana with about 1 lakh commercial sex workers. Closer home, media reports suggest that there is an estimated 1,800 to 3,500 sex workers in Dimapur, the commercial district of Nagaland. Dimapur has also the distinction of being the district with the second highest HIV prevalence rate in India. Of course, this data may probably be outdated, or it might be underreported or even unreliable considering the magnitude and complexity of populations and demographics, especially in cosmopolitan areas like Dimapur. Another aspect is the nature of floating economics depending on the individual's circumstances. But based on my reporting experience, the data for Dimapur may be only from non-governmental organizations and health agencies that assess the population from the urban areas that are generally perceived to host commercial sex activities. Hence, it may be confined only to that demographic, that is the urban demographic. It may not be saying much about people who do not necessarily fall into the low income, uneducated, and rural demographic who offer sexual services in exchange for favor, not necessarily for money alone. So commercial sex workers are generally people from low income and low educational backgrounds who earn a livelihood by offering sexual services to meet their economic goals. I think that is something we should remember. It is their only source of income. This is a livelihood for them. But then again, there are people who do not typically identify as commercial sex workers, and they are not perceived as one either. So these individuals do not come from typical poor and low economic, social, or educational backgrounds. Rather, they are educated, even highly educated people. They are urban and modern and are often from middle to higher class sections of the society. Recently, a Western news house broadcast a story about a woman who had several degrees, including a very big one, a business degree. And she was working in a very high paying corporate job. But then she decided to join the sex industry anyway. So those are the types of people, different types of them. So there are a lot of people who do not do it for money only, and they are not identified as commercial sex workers the way we conventionally do it. Rather, the second group, they offer sexual services in exchange for social mileage, even lavish lifestyle. They normally engage in these kind of activities so that the funds will fund their lifestyles, or some engage in this kind of activity even to pay off their schools or colleges. Especially in developed countries, this is a very common phenomenon. This is typically called sugaring or sugar dating. I think some of you might have heard. There is this first group that are forced into the profession because they had no options, no educational, they have no strong educational foundation. They have no economic, how do you put it? They don't have an economic backing. They don't have industry relevant skills also. So what they do is the flesh trade is the only option for them. So they go into it. That's the first group. The second group, like I said just now, they are those who are not normally from the low economic backgrounds. They are generally who are very well educated. They have the skills, they are urban, and they are modern, and they are normally from the middle to higher class strata of the society. But these people, some of these people, they are also engaged in services that is similar to the job profile of commercial sex workers. For the second group, they might not be confined to a particular space in the urban areas, in the towns. We call them red light districts or red light areas. But the second group are normally those who do it not just for money. And in fact, some of them don't do it for money. Some do it for other purposes, such as funding their lifestyles or even paying for their college fees. This is called sugar dating or sugaring. So I think many of our youth might have heard of this term too. So for those who might not know about it, a sugar baby is a typical young man or woman who goes on dates or engage in an arranged, mutually agreed relationship with someone who is typically an older or a wealthier man or woman. So in exchange for money, gifts, personal favors, mentorship, and even for travel, the older and wealthier partner, which most definitely might be considered the sugar daddy or the sugar mommy, is generally called the mentor or the provider, while the one offering the services are called sugar babies, men or women. So the sugar daddy or sugar mommy takes care of all the sugar babies' needs, including their financial needs. So in exchange, the sugar baby takes care of the older and wealthier partner's sexual needs, or any needs they might have agreed upon when they first entered into an agreement of relationships. So this is a common practice in developed economies, and among high-income strata of the society, I think India has been reporting this phenomenon too. That's what we know, and it is not relatively too uncommon to hear about stories such as sugar dating even in India. My point is, the data on commercial sex workers might not really be set in black and white. That said, it is true that the government legislations and prosecution from authorities might make a small dent in curbing these commercial sex activities, whether they are professional or casual, but it is generally effective. That is what we know. A new population of commercial sex workers will sprout in the place where the previous group has been uprooted. We can arrest them, we can rescue the girls or anyone engaged, forced into sexual commercial sex work. We can arrest them, we can bring them into rehabs, but it is only very temporary. The reason is this: the profession does not necessarily stem from questions of ideals or even morality per se. It has to do with economics, and that means poverty, crime, destitution, lack of education, lack of mainstream industry-specific skills, and lack of employment. So, and in countries like India, poverty, crime, sex trafficking, unemployment, and underdevelopment can often be the leading reasons that push women and girls into professions that do not want to be in. So let's check out the next news item. It looks like it will be some years or maybe months, we don't know, before the AFSPA is completely removed from Northeast India and especially Nagaland. The Home Ministry of India has announced that the Armed Forces Special Powers Act will be extended to the states of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh from March 24th. Yes, the center has been offering assurances that the law would be repealed from Nagaland in phases over the years, yes. But for now, the AFSPA stays whether you like it or not. Considering the history of military excesses in Assam, Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, and yes, Manipur, even the center is aware of the blood the military personnel have on its hands over the past recent years. So maybe that is the reason why the government of India has this time made it clear that the AFSPA will be exercised with utmost care and responsibility. It has assured that it will not be used as a tool to suppress the rights of the citizens of Nagaland and Arunachal Pradesh. That's what the statement said. The government has also set up a committee to monitor the implementation of the act and to ensure that it is exercised with caution and responsibility. So those were the bloody days, the 90s and 80s. During the 90s, when we were growing up in Wokha town, let me tell you a story. Troops of the Assam Rifles would go out on patrols wearing Naga shawls, Ao Sumi Lotha showers. It was a very common sight, so that we didn't even bother to notice them, but it was very common for the security forces those days to go out patrolling in their jeans and sneakers, and of course the Ao Sumi Lotha Tangkul and Konyak showers. So our house back then in Wokha was in a place called New Colony, which was located at the foot of the Assam Rifles camp on a hill. The hill was called the Gangabos. I think it was Gangabos. By what I heard, I think the camp has now been vacated and now houses some administrative buildings. So it was almost every day that we used to see Assam Rifle troops moving out on their patrols in jeans and sneakers. They would hide their weapons underneath the Naga shawls they wore. So wearing shawls was common those days. Anyone. We used to go to college wearing shawls. We used to go to public events and churches, and to meet our boyfriends and girlfriends. We used to go out. It was what we call fair clothes, for special occasions. So it was logical that the soldiers would somehow blend in and not look too conspicuous in combat and camouflage apparel. If I recall correctly, even the CRPF started wearing Naga shawls during their patrols, especially during sensitive days when ambushes or firefights or killings occurred between security forces and the Naga political group cadres those days. Nowadays, if you wear shawls, they'll give you this strange look like you stole their kidneys, Anyhow, those were the times when the Armed Forces Special Powers Act was stringent and had real-world consequences. People across the state used to be woken up at night, beaten up or tortured, or they were taken away from their houses, or their houses were searched. I was told my own grandfather from Akuluto town was tortured and maimed by the Indian military forces, which led to health issues in the later parts of his life. So the enforcement that the AFSPA allowed was extreme in action and extremely common in occurrence. That was the AFSPA. The AFSPA gives the Indian Armed Forces the legal right to search, detain, and even shoot at sight any person suspected of being involved in any anti-national activities. There are a lot of Naga homes that have no grandfather, no father, and no son because of the AFSPA. The Act also grants immunity, that is, protection from legal action by the court or government, to military personnel from legal action in case of any excesses that may be committed in the course of their duty. So times are a little different now compared to the decades prior to the 1997 ceasefire between the NSNIM and the government, ladies and gentlemen. The other groups eventually followed into various ceasefire agreements one by one. Ambushes by the Indian security forces and the undergrounds against each other were very common these days. People were killed for being on suspicion of being underground workers. That was also common. Underground workers killing off-duty personnel were also very common. So many years ago, a soldier in the security forces was reportedly pulled out from a bus. He was traveling in and was shot dead by people who suspect that they were Naga underground cadres. It happened in Wokha. It was in the morning, I still remember. So there was this place called King Hand Colony, I think King Hand Colony or Orchid Colony in Wokha town. So the incident happened there. That poor person was brought to the top of a nearby hill, King Hand Colony, and then shot dead right there in the morning. According to what people said, he was returning to his camp after his holidays or something like that. So the incident happened near the IOC petrol station in Wokha, just near Deputy Chief Minister Yantungo Patan's private residence, just nearby. Interestingly, just a few meters away from the place the off-duty soldier was shot dead, there is also a family whose son was shot dead by underground cadres, allegedly for using drugs or something like that. He was one of my elder brother's friends. So anyhow, contrary to belief, the AFSPA is not a recent law. It goes all the way to India's fight for independence. Like many Indian laws, this one is also traced to the British Raj history. The AFSPA is also a colonial law. The AFSPA was first enacted as an ordinance following the Quit India movement that was launched by Mahatma Gandhi in 1942. A day after its launch on August 8, 1942, the movement became leaderless after the British government jailed some of the top leaders, including Mahatma Gandhi, yes, Jawaharlal Nehru, yes, and V.P. Patel. This led to widespread violence across the country. So, shaken by the massive scale of violence across the country, the then Viceroy Lithgow promulgated the Armed Forces Special Powers Ordinance in 1942. So this ordinance gave birth to a series of iterations of the AFSPA during the course of time. The Indian Parliament has enacted 3 different acts under the AFSPA for different regions, such as the Armed Forces Special Powers Assam and Manipur Act 1958. This is the one Nagaland is currently under, and it was created specifically to deal with Naga insurgency in the Assam region. Remember, Nagaland came into being only in 1963, so yes, Assam region. So we were administrated as part of the Naga Hills adjoining Assam. So the second one is the Armed Forces Punjab and Chandigarh Special Powers Act of 1983. This was formulated to deal with militancy in Punjab. Like Nagaland, Punjab also suffered from bloody militancy. Today we know it as the Khalistan movement. The third iteration is the Armed Forces Jammu and Kashmir Special Powers Act of 1990. This one was formulated for Jammu and Kashmir. The AFSPA for Jammu and Kashmir was enacted in 1990 to tackle the militancy and insurgency movement in the state. Let's go and check out what is happening in the Rahul Gandhi's camp. After being disqualified from the Lok Sabha and his membership, Rahul Gandhi addressed his first press conference at the AICC headquarters in New Delhi. Gandhi has been disqualified, I think you have read it, disqualified from the Lok Sabha after conviction in a defamation case by a court in Gujarat. Rahul Gandhi said he is fighting for the voice of India's democracy and is ready to do everything. So let's first see what he has to say in this regard, and we will see what options he has to pull himself out of this dilemma.
कि अदानी पर आक्रमण देश पर आक्रमण है, मतलब इनके माइंड में देश अदानी है और अदानी देश है. बात समझिए.
राहुल जी मेरा सवाल आपसे ये है कि जब आप ये फैसला सामने आया, आपको मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट जो है इसमें हो सकती है वो आपके लिए मुकर्रर की गई. इस बीच कई लोगों ने ये भी कहा, आपके पार्टी के भी एक सांसद ने कहा कि कम से कम जज को ये देखना चाहिए था कि सामने जो शख्स है वो एक गांधी परिवार से आता है. इस पर आप क्या कहेंगे, और आपको लगता है मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट जो है आपके केस में मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट आपके लिए मुकर्रर की गई, क्या आपको इसके पीछे क्या कहना आपका?
वही मैंने कहा, अगर डिस्ट्रैक्शन करना है, मैक्सिमम पनिशमेंट की तो जरूरत है. मिनिमम पनिशमेंट से बात थोड़ी बनेगी. मैं तो सोच रहा था भैया 5 साल होते, 7 साल होते, 10 साल होते, वो भी मिल जाता. मुझे क्या फर्क पड़ रहा है
यार राजदीप.
I have only one step, and that step is to fight for the.
As per law, if the conviction is not overturned or the quantum of sentence is not reduced by any higher court, Rahul Gandhi will not be able to contest elections for the next 8 years. So according to law, Kerala's Wayanad seat is now vacant and the election commission can now announce a special election for that particular seat. However, there are still some more options for Gandhi to keep his seat. He can only be saved if he manages to get the conviction overturned or reduced to less than 2 years. Only then the qualification would get nullified. Recently, the Lakshadweep MP Muhammad Faisal was saved even after his disqualification was notified by the Lok Sabha Secretariat from the date of his conviction in an attempt to murder case in January this year, and by-election was announced by the Election Commission. The Commission, however, set aside the by-poll notification after the Kerala High Court stayed his conviction. So Rahul Gandhi and his team can now challenge the decision in a higher court, starting with the Sessions Court. Reports say that the Congress leader plans to challenge the verdict in a higher court. However, it's a criminal case, ladies and gentlemen, so you have to understand that. Therefore, Rahul Gandhi cannot approach the High Court or the Supreme Court directly. Gandhi's first appeal would be before the Surat Sessions Court, and then he can move on to the Gujarat High Court. So if the appeal for suspension of sentence and a freeze on the order is not accepted there, then he can move the Supreme Court. Those were the stories for today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your support. Keep supporting us, and we will be bringing you more updates later on too. Keep watching Hornbill TV. I'm Ngullie. See you next time.